Peace and Black Power family. It is Brother Agyei Tyehimba from Harlem Liberation School, where we teach Black people to wake up, clean up, and stand up. I hope everyone is at peace yet preparing for war, because we are in fact being warred against politically and economically for sure. And I would probably add psychologically when you consider the propaganda. You know, don't forget that their number one tactic is to keep us distracted, weaponizing social media, commercials, all types of imagery, movies, broadcasts, audio, all designed to keep people distracted, to have our ears, eyes, and our attention left when the situation we should be worried about is coming right. If you know what I mean, family. Glad to see you today. I hope everyone's at peace. Family, today, you know, we have our Black Power Cipher. But we usually would have myself and Dr. Yusef Bunchy Shakur out of Detroit, giving our commentary and our insights and perspective on, you know, views of liberation and some of the experiences that we've had and things we've learned from those experiences. Brother Yusef, though, is recuperating from a surgery, and so we're giving him a break so he can recover. We certainly wish him a speedy and thorough recovery. Brother Yusef, if you're watching, hope you're feeling better, good brother. You rest up, and we will catch up with you next month, God willing. That said, family, what we were doing last week was answering certain questions. And so I'm going to continue that by myself this week. And if any of you would like to join in the studio with me live, I'm going to put up the link so that you can join in. Of course, we're not going to have no foolishness on the show. The assumption is you're joining in. You're a new African that has something to add, something of value to add to the discussion. I'm going to put that up in a minute. Give me 1 second, family. Hold on 1 second. Put up the information so that you all can join a little later. Give me 1 second as I put that up. We'll probably have that scroll on the bottom. I have that scrolling now. All right, family. Let's get to some of these questions that I'm supposed to be answering. Yusef and I did not get to finish last time we met our last broadcast. Remember that we meet on the second Saturday of every month at 2 p.m. Eastern, and the show goes for roughly 6 minutes. Today's show might be a little quicker, but we'll see. Let's get right into it. So the first question is why and when did I change my name, and what do my names mean, right? And I think the answer to that is in roughly 1991. I learned that I was going to have my first child, and I was very excited, very happy about that news. I wanted to be a parent, and I saw myself as going to take the best of what my parents offered me and going to add to it my own personality, my own sensibilities, and some of my research on parenting on Black children. Definitely crediting Brother Amos Wilson. He had 2 books I read that targeted Black children. And so I kind of was excited about learning that I would be a dad. And in that excitement, I wanted to prepare for uh, my first child's birth. She would eventually be Nubia Tyehimba. Shout out to Nubia, who is, I believe, still away out of the country at this point. And I wanted to be right. So I fasted for 30 days, no solid foods, only liquids. And I dropped a lot of weight. Of course, that time I didn't have a whole lot of weight on me. Youth, I tell you. And the second thing I did was I decided to do something I have been wanting to do for years, and that was to change my names. One of the reasons that I changed my names on a surface was I did not want my children to be born with white. I didn't want my white or European names. I didn't want to pass those European names on to my children. I wanted them to be born, unlike myself, wanted them to be born with African names, to have that cultural and historical and political connection to the motherland. And the best way to do that was to make sure that my name was before they were born African names. That's on the surface. In a way, a deeper meaning is for many years prior to that, being a young Black nationalist and Pan-African, I wanted to disavow anything that I did not appreciate that came out of the European tradition. I wanted to get rid of it. If I can be really honest, I wanted to get rid of it. I wanted to break the chains. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not a narrow nationalist. I understand that there are beautiful new African people, some of whom are my teachers, my jegnas, my relatives. I have friends who are African-centered, who've done great work on behalf of our people, who've helped our people eat, learn, grow, and develop. And they got European names. That doesn't make them less African because they got European names. But for me, I think that's a personal choice that has political ramifications. And I just didn't want my born name's Quentin Stiff. I didn't feel that the names fit me. I didn't feel when people would say Quentin, I knew it was when I would turn around, but it didn't feel, you know how you say that person doesn't look like a Mary or a Joe. I didn't feel like a Quentin. Like I wanted a name that that had meaning for me and that was African. And so those are the main reasons I changed my names. I changed my names in roughly, like I said, 1991, and Nubia was born in 1992. So I wanted to do it before she came into existence. And my European names were Quentin Stiff. Stiff, I understand, later came to know, is a German word that means sturdy. Like, it means sturdy. And Quentin is a Latin name that means technically fifth son. Of course, I'm the only child and the only son. but my mother named me Quentin after she gave me my first two names, first middle name, after two black male teachers that had a great impact on her and whom she wanted to respect in her son. And I'm going to tell you something, the power of naming, that our ancestors believed that our children would have the qualities. When you gave them a name, they would have the qualities of that name. And they also believed that they might take on a life mission that has something to do with their names. So interestingly, my mother names me after two black male teachers. And guess what? I become a black male educator, a teacher. I always thought that was interesting. The names I chose were Agyei, Ajamu, Tyehimba. I chose those names by doing research in the university library. I found a number of African name books that gave you different names, the regions of Africa where these names originated, and the meanings of these names. And sometimes the names had more than one meaning. And it also gave I don't know if I want to say language or the people from whence the name came. So Agyei, I got two kind of meanings. It means messenger from God, and it also means, kind of loosely translated, he provides relief, or he helps liberate. Right? Those are the three loose meanings I got for Agyei, and that resonated with me because I saw myself as at least wanting and trying to do God's work, fulfilling my divine assignment, which I felt was to empower Black people, to make humanity better by empowering Black people, educating, organizing, and empowering Black people. Ajamu means he fights for what he wants. That was a reminder that I was a fighter, not in the boxing ring necessarily, but a fighter for liberation, for fairness, for balance. I didn't like bullies in the streets, and I didn't like societal, political, and cultural bullies in our history. And I saw myself as fighting for and on behalf of our people, with and alongside our people, and also fighting against anyone and any policy or practice that was targeting our people for genocide and impoverishment and ill health. So white supremacy, basically, right? And Tyehimba, those are both Ghanaian names. Agyei is as common in Ghana as John or Joe or Mary is here in the United States. Very common name, although it's usually a surname, a family name that's the last name. I liked it so much I chose it as my first name. Ajamu, I said, is Ghanaian, means he fights what he wants, and Tyehimba comes from Nigeria, from the Tiv people or language, Tiv, and Tyehimba means we stand as a nation. I chose that name because I wanted to be situated in this idea of nationalism, this idea that we constitute a nation, we have a similar language and speaking patterns, we have similar dietary practices, we have similar music or interest in music, similar sensibilities, we are similarly oppressed. New Africans, wherever we exist in the United States, have a common enemy and common practices, and therefore we are, for all intents and purposes, a nation, but we don't have a political nation of our own. And that name Tyehimba is to remind me that I'm not on this earth by myself, that I'm part of a nation of fellow New Africans, and that self-determination, this idea that we should carve out a nation for our own, that we participate in self-governance, was important to me. Also, so I think that's it, family. Those are the names. And the next question. And by the way, if you have any questions, let it be known. All right. So let's move on, family. Thank you for joining. I see a few of you in here joining, checking this out. Thank you so much for joining. Let's see what we got here. Next question. Why is education important to me? And how has my education improved the Black liberation work I do? This is a very important question. Those of you who know me well, know that education is a very important part of my life. Education is important to me because when we talk about educating ourselves, we're talking about getting information, developing skill sets, bringing out talents and gifts that we have, and in a sense, working to be our highest selves, making ourselves more useful, more relevant, and more powerful. Not for ourselves alone, for our families and our immediate neighborhoods and communities, and for our people. My understanding was that with more information and knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, I would make myself a more powerful fighter, advocate, protector, community development agent for our people. Now, how has education improved the work I do? Well, I told you my mission is essentially to improve humanity by empowering Black people. And I do that particularly through education. My gifts, we all have some. My particular gifts are well suited for speaking and writing, teaching, history, and sociology and political science to some degree. Taking complex ideas and trying to break them down in a way where anybody in the community can understand them and own them and run with them and build on them. Not talking over people's head and yet not talking down to people, because our people are not unintelligent. We're sharp. And so it's kind of a fine line between making sure that we meet people where they are in terms of our vocabulary and the way we deliver, and yet not talking to them like they're little kids, you know? So it's improved my Black liberation work because, for instance, I learned how to write fairly well, how to communicate verbally fairly well. I learned our history, culture, and politics fairly well through taking American history, through getting a degree in professional and Africana studies, and then getting another master's degree in Afro-American studies. So I got, I guess you could say, higher learning. I got a undergraduate and 2 graduate degrees, but also that's my formal education. But informal education, I grew up in Harlem in the 70s and 80s, and so I took advantage of great institutions like the Schomburg Library. I spent many hours in the Schomburg researching, reading books. I was on 125th Street, bought hundreds of books over the years, had hundreds of conversations over the years with Black book vendors, bookstore owners, like one of my jegnas who is no longer with us physically, Sister Una Mozak, who was the proprietor, the owner of Liberation Bookstore over on like 132nd, I want to say, it's been so long, in Lenox Avenue or Malcolm X Boulevard. And going to places like the First World Alliance meetings that were held on 145th and Convent, actually in the church connected to my elementary school, and sometimes also at City College, which is like a 4-minute walk from my house. Or going to Slave Theater in Brooklyn during the days when my Jagna Khalid Muhammad would be there, or Amos Wilson or John Henry Clark, you know. So that informal education, my Jagnas teaching me the ropes of how to read critically, how to analyze, how to write critically, how to research, teaching me how to identify important places on the world map, and give me the history and knowledge of these different places, migrations, and different cultural patterns of our people. So my education helped me to understand the world we live in, my role in it. It helped me understand different modes of oppression, whether it's through capitalism or patriarchy and misogyny, or I said racism, capitalism, yes, and gender, race, class, and gender. It helped me to understand how white supremacy works, how it works to mistreat us, exploit us, deceive us, keep us disempowered. But it also, this education taught me different social political movements, different important figures in our history, right? Different important historical eras, and the things that our people did to resist our oppression. And so that's been very important. So I guess that's the way that I would kind of sum that up. And also helped me to understand not just what white people do and other people do, but the role we play in our own oppression, how we internalize certain negative narratives and messaging and bad habits and toxic thinking and insecure behaviors that get in the way of our own liberation. So I would say that's the way that education has helped me to improve, be a better fighter for us, and a better intellectual and a better community organizer. At this point, oh yeah, and now the third question. This question is, what does the concept of Black Power mean to me? So we know that Black Power uh, comes to us literally immediately from a series of rallies that SNCC members, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee members, were holding in the 60s, coming off of the Meredith March Against Fear. James Meredith had integrated the University of Mississippi, doing this long walk, this march. And his goal was it was a march against fear. He was hoping that him walking all these hundreds of miles would teach Black people that we can do such things. We can speak out against injustice. We can speak out for Black empowerment, and that we have to get over our fear of white brutality and white folk in order to fight for our freedom. And certainly back then, walking through the South across 2 states was fearless, right? But in the midst of that walk, he was shot by a high-powered rifle from a great distance in his leg. He was not able to continue the march. So SNCC members came and finished the march in his place. And at one point, it was SNCC, SCLC, Martin Luther King and his people were there. And Dr. King and Stokely Carmichael, who later became Kwame Ture, right, or the All African People's Revolutionary Party, kind of had a little clash in which it became public that they disagreed on this issue of nonviolence as a tactic or strategy in the movement. In any event, Kwame Ture had been preparing a group of students to say, what do we want? Black power. What do we want? Black power. Right? So when the media came in this particular city, and it was, what do you want? And they had a rally. Kwame Ture had already primed them and prepared them. And so we had the teens and the young Black adults yelling, we want Black power. So that's where it comes from literally. Although other people used the term before that. Richard Wright wrote a whole book called Black Power. And Adam Clayton Powell sometimes used the term Black Power. So he didn't invent the term, but in terms of the meaning he gave it that resonated and actually was the name that people called the movement that comes about in 1966, off the heels of Malcolm's assassination a year earlier. Black Power movement. To me, Black Power means it's this idea of the different ingredients or elements at play that constitute power for Black people. So to me, it's talking about an economic system or economic initiatives. To me, it's talking about educational, African-centered schools and educational centers, political education centers like Harlem Liberation School, for example. Education initiatives to empower us mentally, teaching us proper ways to eat, proper things to eat, proper ways to prepare our food. It's talking about the institutions creating the institutions, having the knowledge to execute and to govern these institutions, hospitals, uh, credit unions, supermarkets, laundromats. It's talking about teaching us how to protect our lives, our bodies, our minds, and our institutions and our families and communities. So, militias and gun clubs, all of these things, when I think of Black Power, these are the elements of Black Power. In other words, for me, when I think of Black Power, I'm thinking about nationalism. I'm thinking about what are the elements one would need to have a thriving, functional nation. And that's how I see Black Power. But also, it's the things that we must do to secure that. Organizing, having a tight, solid political ideology based on research, not just on anecdotal evidence, but real information, lived history, wise information passed down generation to generation. To me, that's Black Power. It's a concept, it's an ideology, it's a movement. It's this idea that we deserve to be liberated and that we need power to be liberated, that we should exercise power in our own lives, that we should be self-governing, and then what are the things we need to do to get to those particular destinations. So this means we got to talk politics, we got to talk economics, we got to talk education and literacy. It means we got to talk how do we run large-scale institutions? How do we grow our food? How do we build infrastructure of buildings, of housing, and things of that nature? That's, to me, what Black Power means. And we'll see what else we have here. Again, family, if you're tuning in, this is Harlem Liberation School. Technically, this show is usually the Black Power Cipher, the second Saturday of the month, 2 p.m. But brother Dr. Yusef Bunchy Shakur, who's usually my co-host for the Black Power Cipher, just had a surgery not too long ago. He needs time to recover, chill out, and heal. So it's just me today. I think Brother Yusef will be back in commission for next month's show, though. This question is, what do I see as my role in the Black Liberation Movement? And let me scroll down. I want to put this up in case anybody would like to join me in this broadcast. Hold on one second. We'll put this up. All right. I see my role as being a few things. I'm definitely an educator, so my role is definitely to provide education in history, culture, and politics to our people. That will inspire us, that will help us to unify despite differences of opinion, and will activate us to do what we must do to be free and to have safety, uh, prosperity, food, clothing, shelter, love, peace, happiness type of deal. So definitely as an educator, I see myself, my role as being a community organizer. I've been an activist. But I think at this stage of my life, I've kind of pivoted a little bit, having been a leader, a community leader myself, the leader of several different organizations in my life, and an activist for several different issues. Now I see myself as I would like to take all my experience and knowledge, my sensibilities, the lessons I have learned, the memories I've had, the networks I've built, and share them with our community in the form of being kind of like a leadership and empowerment coach. So this means that now I want to coach younger people who aspire to leadership in our community, who want to be part of our new young intellectual class, those who want to use their art and creativity to advance poetry and music and all these things to help wake our people up. I want to coach them. I want to give them information and experiences and insight they need to take their rightful place on the throne as a new generation of leadership for the Black community and within the Black liberation movement. It's kind of like as an athlete. If I use an analogy of an athlete, I used to play football. I used to be a running back. It was pretty good. And then you get to a point where you may play in college or you may play in NFL. I certainly didn't. I played up until high school. And then you get to a place where you get older, you got some injuries, right? And now you say, you know what? I can't play football anymore, but I got all this knowledge I've amassed from studying the playbooks, from all the exercise and the practices and the games, from the victories and from our losses. I could take that knowledge and I'm gonna pivot now, no longer being a football player, but now I'll be a football coach. I will help other players, current day players, and players of the future to perfect their technique, to increase their knowledge, to help them understand organizing and activist techniques and tactics, to help them understand how to map out a political activist campaign, how to negotiate, to fight, to identify the things your people need, to do community outreach, to unify people, to mobilize people, and then how to actually operationalize certain things like how do we get 500, 1,000, 2,000 people to this particular place to have this rally? Who's going to speak? What's going to be the keynote address? Or we're upset with the police and okay, who's in charge? Who do we address our concerns to? What are the different steps we take? Letters, petitions, rallies, marches, not my thing, but protests. What are we doing in those protests? What types of things are we doing in our demonstrations to attract media attention, to let the world know about this issue, and to disrupt or disturb the particular institution that we're challenging? And then once we get people to the negotiating table, what particular things are we demanding? What concessions do we seek, right? And how do we get them? Those are some of the things that's how I see myself now. I'm not trying, just to be clear, you have to partner the Noise family. I'm on the first floor in a Harlem apartment and it's buzzing right now. There's a lot going on. I'm not trying to lead anybody, family. Those days are over for me. I'm not trying to be anyone's leader. But what I am trying to do is advise and help to cultivate those who are in leadership. So I wish to be the person that is called, or one of the people that's called when you have a nationalist or Pan-African organization, and they're talking about doing a conference, and they want this conference to produce this. This is the outcomes that they want. These are the issues they want to address. And they want to make sure that their conference runs very efficiently and effectively. I would like to be one of the people they call. Brother Agyei, this is what we're trying to do. This is how we're trying to do it. This is by when we're trying to do it. What do you suggest? How do we move to make this happen? How do we make sure that this isn't just another conference where a bunch of people just giving long speeches, people go to sleep, people clap for the people they like, buy some bean pies or some dashikis and go home and completely forget what we just addressed in this conference. Disconnected. There's no action plan. There's no stickiness from the conference. In other words, we haven't done anything to hold people accountable to the information disseminated at the conference. We built no relationships from the conference. We have no call to action, no follow-up from the conference, right? I would come in and help them to figure some of those things out based on what they want to do. It's not like I come in and tell anyone what to do. Most of what I do is ask some very pointed, important questions based on what people telling me they want or they're trying to produce or achieve. I can help them through listening and certain questions. I can suggest certain things. I can get them to see, right? I lead them to the answers they're seeking. Not so much I come and tell them what to do. That's the role I want to play, because it dawned on me that I was blessed to have extraordinary teachers, man, extraordinary jegnas, what we used to call mentors back in the day, extraordinary elders who took me under their wing, who corrected me, who guided me, who raised questions with me, who helped me to think clearer, to be more concise, and to understand critical thinking and strategizing, proper people placement, leadership development, leadership training. I got this from doing it in my life successfully, but I also got it from a great deal of reading, which I'm still doing, and I also got from listening to people who had done it way before me at a much higher level and probably a lot more effective than me. And I try to take all of that and pour that into this generation of leadership. Um, it seems to me when I remember my college days at undergrad and then in the master's degree program and then in the doctorate program, I saw white students who were getting tutelage by older white folk, bankers and politicians and educators and intellectuals and writers. And that helps them to hit the ground running. It helps them to avoid making preventable mistakes. It saves them years of their life and helps organizations to be more effective because these young white kids are able to connect to older white people who have successfully done what they're trying to do, right? It's just common sense. And we don't seem to have that. I mean, corporate black integrationist, corporate, I love America, it's the best place on earth, black people have that. They have those type of connections. They have this through organizations for youth. They have internship programs, mentorship, Big Brother, Big Sister, Jack and Jill, all of these programs. But Black nationalists and Pan-Africans like myself and some of you watching typically don't have those type of things. Not in a formal way, not in a way that's accessible to the public. And so that's what I want to do. I want to be one of those people that you come to. Let's say you're a 20, 30 something year old brother or sister, you want to get involved in the community, you don't know how. Or you're already in leadership, but you want to do better. You're noticing that people aren't coming to your meetings. The morale is low. People not filling out the surveys. People not coming to your events. Your actual organizational members aren't. Your meeting attendance is low. People don't seem to be participating. Your people not donating to your initiatives, right? I come in and I can help based on what you tell me you want to see and you want to achieve with your organization. I would come in and kind of help you based on what you're telling me you want to do. And based on your answers to my questions, we would work together and I would kind of help you get the thought process needed to come to the answers you need. And then I would give you certain tools to help you come to certain answers and to make certain decisions. So I would help you make logical, strategic, good decisions that have good outcomes. I would help you identify members of your soul tribe or your network that maybe you have not tapped into. I would help you come up with a few tools to raise your morale so that your organizational members are dying to come to your meetings. They're filling up those seats. They're on the phone calling people, emailing people. Remember the meeting we got coming up? You know, you got people coming to your events. People are donating to your campaigns. Those type of things. That's kind of the role I see myself as playing in this particular movement. And I have to tell you, this comes from, like I said, a lot of reading and study. It comes from a lot of listening to elders and shadowing them, following them around and seeing how they operate, them sharing, me interviewing them, asking them questions, and them sharing with me their mistakes, their misjudgments, you know, and then of course my own lived experience of being a community leader, educator, author, activist myself. That's the role I see myself playing. And I have to be honest, I'm changing the game. My organization that I started is Harlem Liberation School. We're a Black Political Education Center. But I want to be a non-affiliated revolutionary. What do I mean by that? It means that I may be a member of several different Black organizations, or I may be a member of none of these Black organizations. I may be completely non-affiliated in that way, and I am free to exercise the authority I need. I'm free to have the latitude I need to do the work I do without being biased without being, if I have allegiance to this group, but a brother or sister comes from my empowerment coaching and they're from a whole different organization with a slightly different ideology, I can still service them. I can still render them excellent work because I'm not attached to this particular way of doing things or thinking. I'm not hyper localized. I understand that I can work with this organization, I can work with this organization, I can work with that organization, and I can be advising all of them, but I'm doing it objectively. I'm not doing it because this organization believes in revolutionary socialism, scientific socialism. It has to look this way. It has to have this wordage. No, I'm going to advise them based on what they ask me, tell me they need, based on the questions that they answer. You see? And in order for me to do that effectively, I cannot be partisan, right? I have to be free to listen to people and respond to what they're telling me, whatever organization they're in and whatever ideology they come from. Of course, I'll be working mostly with I work mostly with nationalist and Pan-African organizations. But I should tell you, we have some socialist brothers and sisters out here that are beautiful thinkers that are trying to get the Black liberation movement sparked up and successful. And guess what, family? There are even some amongst us who are integrationists, who are not nationalists, Pan-Africanists, or socialists. There are some who believe that America needs work, and they love Black people and they want to protect and advance Black people, but they don't share my political persuasion. So I'm kind of bringing a different dynamic. I'm doing things a little differently based on my lived experience. I want to be Black people from whatever group they are in to be able to trust me and to see my integrity and know I know what I'm talking about. I've been on the ground. I'm not just talking, flapping my jaws. I've been here for a long time. I have created a school that's 24 years old, right? And has graduated thousands of young people. If you see me on Facebook, you'll see a post I did where I just visited a Brooklyn elementary school where its principal is one of my fifth graders from the school I started 24 years ago. So I'm deeply involved in this movement and have been for quite some time. Since I was 13, I made a commitment that I'm going to rock out for our people, and I'm never going to abandon our people. I'm not selling our people out. I may have made some misjudgments in the past. You may disagree with my take on things, but one thing that you don't have to worry about is me stealing no money from the organization, me talking to cops and law enforcement officials about stuff that should be secretive, me snitching on people. You don't have to worry about inappropriate behavior in public, family. I'm real to this. I love Black people, and I love this idea that we need to be the power brokers in our own communities and in our own lives. We need to govern ourselves. We need to um, realize this concept of self-determination and sovereignty. And so, yeah, I see myself as moving differently. I am inspired to this position by great queen mothers like Queen Mother Moore, by sisters like Ella Baker. This is what I mean. I've spoken to several revolutionaries that are now in their 70s, 80s. I've spoken to Brother Muhammad Ahmad, who used to be known as Max Stanford, the creator, the founder of the Revolutionary Action Movement in 1964. And he tells me stories of how Queen Mother Moore used to leave the foyer of her home open for young activists like himself, young revolutionists, to come in, and she would have all these books and files and photocopies of stuff in chronological order and folders, and they could just come, whether she was in the house or not, they could come here, they could read and study, and how she would take them under her wing and school them and answer questions and share her life experiences with working with Garvey and people like that. And she started a number of organizations. She was a Garveyite, Sister Queen Mother Moore, Audrey Moore, but she also was in several different organizations, and if not a formal member of them, she was an advisor to many young Black revolutionaries in the 60s and 70s. I want to be in that mold. I want to be like Queen Mother Moore in that sense, right? That I'm not affiliated. You don't have to, oh, he's with this organization and we don't get along with it. No problem, because I'm not with any of them. I'm a free agent. I'm a revolutionary, black nationalist, and Pan-African, and you can call on me to give you objective advice and guidance, right? Based on all of my experience. Also, I draw from the inspiration of Ella Baker, and I should say Rosa Parks. All of these queen mothers had this attribute of being a member of several different black organizations and or giving advice to several different important figures in particularly in the Black Power movement, all of whom had slightly different political ideologies and perspectives and were members of different organizations. And because they were fluid and elastic like that, they were able to reach a lot of important players in the Black Power movement, for example, because they had the ear of so many different people who respected their integrity, who respected their boots on the ground activism, and respected their political insight and sensibility, and knew that they weren't representing one group, one holy book, one leader, that they weren't affiliated with anyone. Their affiliation, they were married to Black liberation. And so people were able to trust them. Another one is Ella Baker. I want you to think about how powerful this sister was. And these are the people I'm getting my inspiration from. When I say I'm a leadership, black empowerment, or black liberation coach, open and available to be hired by any number of our black nationalists, New African militias, gun clubs, worship, centers of worship, cultural nationalist organizations, revolutionary nationalist organizations, socialist organizations. I'm open and available. You can be a client of mine because I'm not tied to one thing. I'm tied to this idea of black liberation. And I want to help any and all black people and new Africans who are fighting for black liberation. Some won't agree. Some say, I don't want a nation. I'm cool with being here. But there's certain things we got to get in place. Okay, I can rock with them. I can advise them with respect to what they're trying to do, which of course will be radically different. But for me talking to a nationalist or a Pan-Africanist or revolutionary socialist organization, but I see myself as helping our people who are committed and dedicated to helping us fight to mount campaigns that are effective, black resistance. Ella Baker was extraordinary. She worked with SCLC. She worked with she was teaching in Harlem, my hometown where I'm at right now. She was teaching black people to form economic cooperatives, right? Back in like the 40s and 30s, 20s and 30s. And then she's with SCLC as a middle-aged woman. And she's fighting with Martin Luther King. And she's saying, listen, man, you're brilliant, highly educated, highly motivated, but you got to give room for sisters to speak. I listen to these sisters' voices, including mine. And she went back and forth with him all the time. One of the few people who did that. Dr. King's organization wanted her to go to Shaw University in 1960 and start a junior division of SCLC, King's organization. She went there, she said, nah, this is what they want me to do. She went and helped and called on these black student activists all over the country. Got them to Shaw University, which I believe is in North Carolina. Shout out to the family in North Carolina. And the organization that came out of that was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. She took this opportunity, got some of the best and brightest activists and community organizers from all over the country. These are college student activists. And she said, this is what they want me to do. I want you to form your own organization. And I won't be the head of your organization. I'll advise you. But ultimately, I'll be a non-voting member. You guys will make your own decisions. You know, that was visionary at that time. And she taught them how not to just come in the city and you be the badass, you give a speech and it's all about you. But she taught them to come to the city, to identify indigenous leaders, and to empower those people in the community with the right leadership principles, tactics, strategies, so that they could leave and the people in these cities would be empowered and be able to fight their own battles. when you think that she had people like A. Brown, Stokely Carmichael at the time, who became Kwame Ture, Marion Barry, all of these great individuals come through Ella Baker. And even though she was committed to nonviolence, she never once publicly spoke out against any of the statements of A. Brown, Bobby Seals, Kwame Ture. She supported all of them. That's what I mean by being a leadership or empowerment coach. Not telling people what to do. You're listening to what are your needs? What are you trying to accomplish? What resources do you have? Okay, have you thought about this? Have you considered that? Have you tried this method? Okay. And when you did that, what happened? How did you feel about that? How did that affect your base? Okay. What things do you need money for? What type of fundraisers have you had? Have they been successful? Why do you think they haven't been? Why do you think they have been? What do you think? What groups in our community have you dismissed or ignored when you're making your appeals for donations? How might you attract them? See, we ask questions and help you come up with the answers. Not here to tell you what to do. It's not that type of imposing, controlling. I don't come from that methodology. I'm learning from Ella Baker, who I believe is one of the baddest, and Queen Mother Moore, two of the baddest community organizers we had in our history as New Africans. I'm trying to be I'm coming out of the spirit of what they've done, the role that they played for young activists. And so if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s as an activist or community organizer, if you're a grassroots local politician, loves Black people, you're trying to figure out how to use your city council to get concessions, monies, discretionary funds, initiatives, whatever, to help our people. If you're a head of an organization that represents our people, socialist, scientific socialist organization, you're a revolutionary nationalist, cultural nationalist, you're Pan-African or nationalist, and you need direction. You want to do things, but you want to do them more effectively and efficiently. I'm a brother that you may want to call on to help you with that. That's what I do for a living. I spent decades as a classroom teacher, as a community leader and organizer and activist. And now I'm taking that experience. I'm retired from all those formal jobs. I'm working for myself. That's what I do. And I'm carving out a different niche for myself now. So that I can be independent and that I can be of greater service to our community. So, and there's one last question. I'll try to answer it quickly. And by the way, there's a few minutes, family. Is about 7 minutes. If I have the if you want to join the studio, I'll put the link back up. This is talking about give 3 critiques. I don't know if I'm going to give 3. Maybe I'll give 3. But let me show this. If anyone wants to join me here. Okay, if you want to join me in the studio and chat up real quick for the next 5 minutes, that's the link, and then I can let you into the studio. In the meantime, critiques that I have of our movement, of certain organizations or what have you, well, I think one thing that we could be better in, that we could do better, I think we have to stop the hyper-localized organizing. By that, I mean our tendency to stay focused on the issues and concerns of New Africans in our city. We're concerned about what the police are doing in our city, what the unemployment or employment issue is for Africans in our city, right? It's almost like we think we exist in a bubble, isolated and alienated from all these other New Africans and all these other cities and states in this country. And how about members of the diaspora throughout the world? We get so concentrated on our city, on our local territory, that we kind of disconnect ourselves from a broader Pan-African movement and type of thinking that is necessary for us to be free. We will never win fighting as these individual political islands. In our, you're in the Northeast where I'm at, you in the South, you in the Midwest, you over in the West Coast, and everybody's fighting their own individual battles absorbed in their own local issues and forgetting that our enemies are organizing nationally. They have national conferences, they have regional conferences, they have international conferences where they link up. They have united fronts where they link up with people who think like them in their city, in their state, in their region, in their country, and in different parts of the world. And that's the way we're going to have to think. We're going to have to evolve to that type of thinking. But we can't do that if we're hyper localized. We only care, like that's like me only caring about what goes on in Harlem. I'm only speaking out against oppression against black people in Harlem. That's not going to work, family, right? Because there's billions of Africans in this world, in different parts of this world, and we have to be able to link up. We have to be able to organize in ways that go past our immediate village, right? In fact, I'm going to have Brother or Baba Daruba bin Wahad on, legendary former Black Panther Party leader in New York City, along with Sister Afeni Shakur. He is a 19-year political prisoner. He is a co-founder of the Black Liberation Army. He's going to be sitting with the Harlem Liberation School again Wednesday at 2 p.m. talking about the need for us to look beyond our immediate locales, our immediate political ideologies, our immediate ideas of what black people need to be free, and get involved with a united front of different organizations with slightly different ideologies, all of whom are fighting against imperialism, against colonization, against ruthless forms of capitalism, against political imprisonment of people, right? So I hope you tune in for that, but I'm kind of on that same wavelength. So one critique I have is that, you know, even if we're nationalists and Pan-African, fine, that's good. Organize with some people in that ideology, but you know what? You might want to also rub some shoulders with some revolutionary socialists. You might want to be attuned to what some of our nonviolent civil rights type of organizations are saying and doing. We might, in other words, we have to build networks with people, and those people won't always have our exact political ideology. Family stuff. We can't do this clique type of organizing. I'm going to organize with only people that agree with everything I say and do. No, that's not going to work. We're talking a revolution. We're talking about overturning a corrupt political system. That is what that is going to take. Another critique I would have is sometimes I don't think that we're studying enough. I've had people tell me that I had people that were in the organization that had red, black, and green flags all over there where they were, and disrespect them black Christians, and not knowing that, well, the person that created that red, black, and green flag, Marcus Garvey, was Christian. He had a network of archbishops. He wrote hymns for the church and prayers and referred to Christ. But see, he had an African orientation, almost like a black liberation theology before we coined that term, before people like James Cone, came up with the term black liberation theology. Marcus Garvey saw Christ as a revolutionary black man. So his idea of Christianity was radically different from what we see in the churches today. And he used his form of theology of cosmology as part of his political organizing, which is one of the reasons that he had up to 6 million black people in the UNIA all over the world. His ability to fuse religious tradition and theology with the political work and ideas he had. And people like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was a Garveyite, learned that from Marcus Garvey. So I think that we need to that would be one of the things I would say. I think that we don't study enough. That's why I started Harlem Liberation School. I'm at these panel discussions. People who are leaders are saying things that are blatantly wrong. I don't disagree with them. It's not about disagreement. They're wrong. They're actually saying things that aren't true. and these are leaders of organizations. So it's like, yo, we got to study, man. We should not be falsely representing people's ideas, people's organizations, people's political movements, and we should have nuanced thinking. That would lead me to a third critique. Sometimes we get very inflexible and rigid in our thinking, family. Everything we see is black or white, and that's not how the world works. There's a lot of gray. In other words, there are a lot of things in our lives, in the world we occupy, that aren't so simple as this or that. They're not these binary discussions, right? So for instance, when we talk about what does black power mean, well, nationalists, certain cultural nationalists have a certain idea of what that means. Revolutionary nationalists have a different idea of what that means. Socialists might have a different idea of what black power means, right? Your average black Baptist preachers or black Christians might have an idea of what that means. And all of those ideas may be valid. It's not one or the other. There's room for other people to add, right? To contribute, to have voice. But if we have this rigid idea of what it is, and it's like, nope, this is what it is. I'm not trying to hear nothing, nothing y'all got to say. Then we're lost from the gate. I really think that my ability to not be so rigid comes from all of the different judgments I had, that and their different political ideologies. The one thing they had in common was they hated oppression of black people and exploitation, and they fought vigorously against it. They were committed to black liberation. But other than that, they disagreed on a whole lot of things. And that gave me a broad-based understanding and an idea that it's going to take different tribes, family, different tribes in our village to win this. It's not going to be just the nationalists. It won't be just the Pan-Africans. And if you're going out telling our people in our community that it's Garvey or die, Malcolm or die, Mao Zedong or die, Jesus Christ or die, he's the only way. I believe that's fundamentally flawed, and I disagree. It's inaccurate. It's going to take a mixture of methods or methodologies, a mixture of ideas, a mixture of different types of people with their political ideas and personalities and resources for us to exercise and to realize self-determination. There's no way around that. And so if we're on this territorial type of thinking, we're going to be our own worst enemies. And we never want to play that position. So those would be my three critiques, so to speak. I see that nobody joined, family. That's okay. You didn't join the studio. Don't be scared. I won't bite. But we're going to catch you Wednesday, family. Come tune in Harlem Liberation School on YouTube. Please, if you have not subscribed, click the subscribe button. Spread the word. We're going to have Baba Daruba bin Wahad. He's going to be making an impassioned plea for our nationalist and Pan-African communities, our revolutionary socialist communities. He's going to be saying, yo, don't be so hyper-localized. Don't be so parochial. Don't be so narrow. We need a united front. That's what he's going to be calling for. Tune in, because if anybody can lay it down, it is Brother Baba Daruba bin Wahad. He knows how to, his analysis politically is razor sharp. He's walked the walk. He's talked the talk. So tune in Wednesday, Harlem Liberation School on YouTube at 2 p.m. to hear Brother Daruba bin Wahad. And family, please subscribe to the channel. We thank all of you who do subscribe and who come and join us regularly. Thank you, family, for joining us. Peace and black power. We will win. That is a fact.